Hi, it's Joe McGovern of TheWrap here at TheWrap Studios at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I'm here with the creative team of William Tell, a really robust historical epic making its world premiere here. Nick Ham and Ellie Bamber and Claes Bang. What made you think that this time was right to take on this subject?
What I wanted to do was to re-look at something that hadn't been looked at and had been kind of overlooked, if you like. William tells the story of a man facing all kinds of issues, but essentially, it's a story about individual liberty, and the questions posed in that are about whether or not you can have individual liberty when you're faced with an autocratic government, and whether you can have any kinds of freedoms in that situation, and what are those freedoms and how do you fight for them. So in many respects, it's about the idea of resistance. It's about the idea of not going to war. It's about the idea of how do you, if you like, how do you recognize and move forward with a debate about individual freedom and your liberty in the context of where we are now. So you're looking at history in order to talk about something that is contemporary. And you're looking at something with Tell, which is a legend that people don't really know very much about. You don't know it. A lot of people around us didn't know it, but everybody kind of knows about the apple. And the apple scene is one of those most extraordinary scenes ever written. So I took this early 19th century drama written by a classical German writer called Friedrich Schiller, and I adapted it for a 21st century audience. And in the end, what's remarkable is to have that language heard in contemporary cinema. And that was one of the motivations for doing it.
William Tell sort of disobeys the Austrian authority and is forced to, with a crossbow, shoot an apple off the head of his own son.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's the scene that everybody knows in certainly in European culture, but nobody knows the reason why it happened. And what that scene is an exercise in power. It's the scene in which one man, the two protagonists of the movie are William Tell and a character called Gessler, played by Connor Swindells, and they are effectively Connor's character imposes his military discipline on this Swiss region. And in order to show and demonstrate his level of power, he instigates what he thinks is initially a game and then becomes quite serious. Now that sounds heavy and strange. At the same time, we're making a movie that we want people to enjoy, and it is. But within that, there's context. Within that, there's an idea that you're making a film which can both speak to and talk about the politics and the morality of where we are through history, but be damn good fun while you're watching it.
Claes, how much of the story was new to you? I guess you knew some of what Nick just mentioned, but
I like that whole journey. He's seen war before. He's been in war, and that sort of made him a pacifist. He's moved into the mountains with his wife and his son. He doesn't want to do any of this anymore. But then he's forced to sort of participate. And when are your scales sort of tipped? I mean, what prompts you to sort of go up against what you've decided never to do again? And I thought this was such an interesting journey for me and for the character to take on.
there are a lot of threads that are being pulled together, and I tribute to your screenplay because it's a 2-hour movie or 2 hours or so with maybe a dozen different sort of storylines. That's why I want to include Ellie, because in some of these stories, not this one, the female characters are the women waiting at home for the men to come back. Now, Princess Bertha has incredible agency. You have you are there at all the different turns, including at the end. Including aboard a ship in a storm where the two of you are being
Fun day.
What a fun week. That's when Bam Ba Bang started to
It
come
did. It
into,
started. Yeah. It was actually really fun. I had a great time on that ship.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Are you kidding
I
me?
did.
A
I
great
really.
time.
It was fun being like,
Soaking wet.
totally soaking wet and like having all this water. It was fun.
Constantly. Yeah, I remember because I had a slight cold on one of those days. I had a doctor come and see me, and he took my temperature and he said, "It's 34 now. You probably need to do something because you've got another 8 hours of being, drenched in ice cold water." So I mean, it was. I thought it was really tough, actually.
It was tough, definitely.
We should mention there's a great cast, but I just want to single out Ben Kingsley plays the bad king with a gold eye patch, which I love, and he's your character's uncle. There's some interactions there that happen. Just tell us about your position in this film, knowing that you were one of the women in it that was driving the story forward.
I think the thing is about Bertha is when you first meet her, she is a pawn in the king's game, and he thinks that he can use her in marriage and solely that. But she's incredibly politically minded. She understands that the complex issues that are going on. She has Austrian blood, she has Swiss blood, and she believes that the Austrian rule is not okay. And so she kind of joins the fight and fights for the Swiss, but she's kind of maneuvering through what is very much a man's world, but also having them kind of slightly manipulating them to kind of get what she wants and to also get her freedom, because essentially that's what she's trying to gain within the story, is her own freedom, not only the freedom of the Swiss as well. But she has a lot of agency, and she does some... there's some fun stuff. I loved it.
I mean, what you're saying about when Schiller wrote, look, here's the deal. At the beginning, when Schiller wrote that script, all the women were essentially one up from a kind of domestic servant. They were literally stay at home, cook, feed, children. I mean, and I just think you can't represent female actors. You couldn't give those parts out to any actors because women want to play different roles. So I took every single female role in that screenplay and changed it.
Well, and even the wife, which is an archetype,
right,
is much different.
Well,
here.
the wife of Claes's character is a militant, ferocious warrior. And in that sense, and so is Ellie's character.
They're also complex.
They're
like
complex and interesting, and
so
they have
complex.
love affairs, and
Totally.
and they're just exactly the same dimensions as the men. And you better be doing that in your writing and your directing right now, because if you're not, you're wasting time.
They're
And
rebellious.
also, I mean, in terms of storytelling, I think it also works really well for this, because it may very much be that the centerpiece of it is that apple scene. But as you just mentioned, it's actually like a lot of characters that sort of come into play here, and you couldn't take out one, and if you did, the structure would fall apart. This story would not work. Everybody has like their contribution.
It has that Game of Thrones element, right?
Which is really, really cool.
Families.
I think that it's not a one-man army in that sense. I mean, it is obviously becomes like it's the story of this legend of this guy, but it turns out in this movie that this is not a one-man army. It's very much, our collaboration, if they didn't sort of like meet on that boat and escape it and do what we do, that it would never, so it would all fall apart if you took out one little bit, right, which is a good story.
And I think that sequence that we go on, like, it's really interesting how our two characters come together and kind of underestimate each other, but then end up really pulling each other through difficult times and getting to a place where we can.
They sort of like
fight.
manage to sort of see the best potential in both in each other.
Yeah.
So they sort in that way that really, I really like how it's not really a force of one man. It's like a lot of people coming together and actually managing to throw out the oppressors.
Well, we got to end. We got to wrap at the wrap. And with that, on that point, though, I think that what will happen when people see the movie is that there'll be a lot of talking afterwards, not about 13, 07 when it took place, but about 2024.
Well, I mean, look, if you don't learn from history, you're not learning from anything. And
Yeah.
if we keep repeating the same cycle of violence and the same appalling behavior to each other, and look, let's face it, there are all these kind of cinema has a duty and a kind of responsibility to both entertain and to a certain extent illuminate what's going on. Our first job is to entertain. Cinema's in enough problems right now, and we better entertain, and hopefully this kind of picture helps in that journey.
Congratulations, everybody, and
Thank you.
Thank you for talking about
Thank
the
you
film.
very much.
Thank you so much.